I need your help to save my farm and many other farms.
Guess who just got the tea about what's going over on MAGA sides, specifically with the farmers in Arkansas? Child, them Trump tariffs is kicking their asses so bad that at the most recent NEA meeting representative assembly that took place on Friday, the farmers in Arkansas all collectively broke down in prayer. They started calling on to God. They started calling on to God because they cannot trust that Donald Trump is actually going to keep his word.
Regarding all these farmers that are now crying about possibly losing their farms because they voted for Trump, this is why you absolutely should not feel bad for any of these farmers that voted for Trump. Now, the ones that didn't vote, yes, feel sorry for them, go support them, do whatever you need to do. But the ones that voted for Trump, do not feel sorry for them.
So the people who say no handouts just lined up for a handout. Now tell me why farmers in Arkansas are standing outside with their hands out again, begging Uncle Sam for money. See, when it's regular people struggling, rent too high, groceries too ridiculous, can't afford health care, the answer is always from these people, stop complaining, stop asking for handouts, and pull yourself up by your bootstrap.
Arkansas overwhelmingly voted for Donald Trump, but now his tariffs are crushing its farmers. Watch.
And it's so bad that many are facing bankruptcy or even the closure of farms that have been passed down for generations. A dismal global market and plunging commodity prices mean there's little to no hope of breaking even for many farmers, even as sky-high input costs rise because of inflation and now tariffs.
You ever notice how history seems to flip itself upside down when people least expect it? For generations, white American farmers were seen as the backbone of America, the ones with the land, the subsidies, the control. But now something has changed. They're the ones begging Washington for help. They're the ones watching the soil dry up, the bills pile up, and the government turn its back. Meanwhile, a group that was systematically denied loans, grants, and even ownership, Black farmers, are quietly thriving, building generational wealth from the dirt beneath their feet, often without a dime of federal aid. And it makes me wonder, how did we get here? How did the people who once controlled America's agricultural empire end up on their knees, while the people they once pushed aside are finding power and independence? That's what this story is about. Not just farming, but karma, history, and resilience.
So the people who say no handouts just lined up for a handout. Now tell me why farmers in Arkansas are standing outside with their hands out again, begging Uncle Sam for money. See, when it's regular people struggling, rent too high, groceries too ridiculous, can't afford health care, the answer is always from these people, stop complaining, stop asking for handouts, and pull yourself up by your bootstrap. Farmers in Arkansas are crying out to the feds for stimulus money like it's open mic night. And look, I get it, because times are hard everywhere. When you plant your crops, raise your cattle, take on the risks of farming, wasn't that a personal business decision? So why is it on me and you to make sure that that decision keeps paying out? Because see, when you and I make bad decisions, government doesn't cut us a check to make it right for us. Now, let's connect the dots here a little bit. These are the same people voting for the same politicians who say government is the problem. Yet as soon as the tractors stop running and their profits dry up, government magically turns into a solution for them. Ain't that funny and ironic? The question is, do we owe farmers any help? Or do they need to practice what they preach? Figure it out. Tighten that belt. Leave taxpayers out of it. Because last I checked, it's really not our problem to fix somebody else's gamble.
If I see another farmer on TV crying and whining about their situation, I'm going to go insane. Let's get into it. So I'm kind of piggybacking off a video I saw yesterday, the day before, from Middle Aged Rider. Go follow him if you're not doing it already. He's got good content. But I am just so sick of seeing farmers crying and whining because they can't sell their soybeans or whatever crop they've got. I'm going to remind you what these same fucking farmers were saying back in 2019 when the same bullshit was happening, and they still showed up to vote for this fucking maniac who tried to overturn an election, who got convicted of felonies, found liable for sexual assault. They had no problem showing right back up for this motherfucker, and I'm going to show you why. So back in 2019 and 2020, you can see here that farmers were given billions billions and billions and billions of dollars of straight cash payments, checks written of $100,000 or more sent straight to him. Look, $28 billion in 2 years, all because of his trade war. You can see here, farm subsidies jumped to their most in 14 years back in 2019. This farmer here who was interviewed could not sell his soybeans to China because of Trump's tariffs back in 2019. And then he said, Trump money is what we call it. It helped a lot, and my understanding is they're going to do it again. So yes, boy, they loved that government money coming to them, didn't they? Shows right here. Thousands of farmers got more than $100,000 each. Roughly twice as much as the actual harm. I mean, they was just throwing them money. And now they want to come back 5 years later, whining and crying and bitching and moaning. I'm so sick of it. I'm going to show you a farmer from North Dakota right now who did a damn interview, and she tells you just exactly how fucking selfish they all are.
Jager says that ever since the August 1st tariffs took place, she's been worried about her income, loans, and bills. She says that she's never had to worry before about her crops not having a market. China, which usually buys the largest amount of soybeans from U.S. farmers, has stopped because of tariffs.
Out against everything, knowing that agriculture in America needs an international market, it's just really unfair. You know, how about you look at the items that you really could tariff that won't affect so many people?
I mean, are you fucking kidding me? Tariffs for all of us. She don't mind that. Tariff everybody else, but don't tariff us. I mean, completely selfish assholes. Everybody saw what was coming. If you are a fucking Trump voter, I'm out of empathy for you, okay? You deserve to live with the fucking consequences of the decision that you made, just like everybody else has to live with the fucking decision that you made.
For decades, the image of the white American farmer was almost sacred. Political campaigns used it as a symbol of honesty, hard work, and tradition. Feed America, that was the rallying cry. But under the surface, a quiet collapse has been happening. Today, thousands of white farmers are losing everything, not because they suddenly forgot how to grow corn or raise cattle, but because policy, profit, and politics have turned against them. Decades of reliance on subsidies, crop insurance, and federal loans created a cycle of dependence. Now, with new Republican policies prioritizing corporate agriculture and cutting farmer relief programs, small farmers are left with nothing to fall back on. They built their world around government support, and that support is disappearing. Meanwhile, Black farmers never had that safety net to begin with. They were shut out of USDA loans, denied grants, and often faced open discrimination in county offices. They learned to survive without the system, a lesson that's suddenly paying off.
Arkansas overwhelmingly voted for Donald Trump, but now his tariffs are crushing its farmers. Watch.
And it's so bad that many are facing bankruptcy or even the closure of farms that have been passed down for generations. A dismal global market and plunging commodity prices mean there's little to no hope of breaking even for many farmers, even as sky-high input costs rise because of inflation and now tariffs.
This time last year, the rice price was about 40% higher than it is now. The inputs costs have gone up, so after a horrible year last year where most farmers in Arkansas Delta lost money, this year's going to be worse.
Now, under Trump, farmers face over $1 billion in projected losses this season. Up to a third could go under because Trump's big, beautiful bill won't release farm aid until late next year. And that's way too late. But when Joe Biden was president, farmers had relief programs while the disasters were happening. There was no, hey, you're going to have to wait until late next year. And when Kamala Harris ran, she proposed giving small farmers more access to credit, to crop insurance, while cracking down on big agriculture, and even pushing the right to repair law so that farmers could fix their own equipment. And look, I'm not under the illusion that one day Arkansas is suddenly going to vote blue. What I am saying is that the idea that Joe Biden or Kamala Harris didn't reach out to the working class or farmers is bullshit, because by any metric, Biden-Harris delivered more for farmers than Donald Trump did. Donald Trump ran on tariffs, and these farmers knew the consequences and still voted for him. And now, because of their steadfast commitment to allowing Donald Trump to help tank their business, they're now going to have to be bailed out with our blue state federal tax dollars.
I tell you what. If the federal government caves in and gives these whining white farmers in Arkansas and all over the country welfare checks that they are crying and begging for because they are dealing with the consequences of their vote, that I hope that the National Black Farmers Association gets together and files a class action lawsuit against the government, just like those white farmers did in 2021 in order to block stimulus aid to black farmers. They sure did. They filed a lawsuit in 2021, white farmers, including those in Arkansas, to bar the federal government from giving a $4 billion stimulus package to black farmers and farmers of color because they felt it was reverse discrimination and it was unconstitutional. Well, if the federal government turns around and gives them money, then yes, National Black Farmers Association, please get together and file the biggest lawsuit that you can against the federal government. I've tagged John Boyd, who is the founder of the National Black Farmers Association, in this video. You all please go follow him, learn more about the National Black Farmers Association and how you can help them fight for economic justice for our black farmers. Thanks, y'all.
Black farmers have lived through the kind of agricultural oppression most Americans can't even imagine. From land theft to racist lending practices, they've fought for every acre. In 1920, there were nearly 1 million black farmers in the U.S. By the early 2000s, fewer than 50,000 remained. That wasn't coincidence, that was policy. But something powerful has shifted. Across the South, Midwest, and even urban areas, black farmers are rebuilding, and doing it without the system that tried to erase them. They're pooling resources, starting co-ops, selling directly to communities, and embracing sustainability over volume. The irony? The very same independence that white farmers once mocked as unrealistic is now the model for survival. And while white farmers are filing for bankruptcy, black farmers are investing in self-sufficiency, solar-powered farms, direct-to-consumer markets, educational initiatives, and land trusts that protect them from foreclosure. They were never given help, so they learned to help themselves.
Regarding all these farmers that are now crying about possibly losing their farms because they voted for Trump, this is why you absolutely should not feel bad for any of these farmers that voted for Trump. Now, the ones that didn't vote, yes, feel sorry for them, go support them, do whatever you need to do. But the ones that voted for Trump, do not feel sorry for them, and let me tell you why. I am a builder, and I've been building shit in Oklahoma City going on like 20 years now, and farmers are not stupid. If you have the ability to manage a farm and understand the weather, the climate, your machinery, the chemistry that goes into your crops, you are not a stupid person. You're just not. And especially when you come from generational farming, you have the ability to look ahead and predict what you need to survive. And so when you have two candidates, where you have Kamala Harris on one side giving you a whole fucking list of shit that she's going to do for you and make your life better, and then you have Trump on the other side who can't even come out with a normal sounding sentence, and you still vote for that guy, and you are a farmer, you are either racist or sexist or both. And they're only crying now because now they are being treated exactly how they voted for other people to be treated. Got that? They are being treated how they voted for other minorities, people of color, everybody else, poor people, sick people. That's how they voted for other people to be treated. And now they're the ones being treated that way by losing their livelihood, their homes, their income, their farms. So do not feel sorry for them. This is exactly what they had coming. Quick follow-up as to why exactly would Trump be doing this to farmers anyways, and I'm guessing 99% chance it's because he wants to bankrupt farms so his corporate buddies can come in and do a land grab. Basically what you have been seeing the last few years, major companies buying up a bunch of rental houses and jacking up the price of rents, and it's all going to corporations. It's probably something similar to let these farms go to foreclosure and his corporate buddies be able to come in, swoop them up, and now you've got bigger companies involved in more of our day-to-day food.
Yo, in today's episode of As the White Hood Turns. So, we've all heard that the job numbers came in, right? And only 22,000 jobs were added. And we all know Syphilitic Sid has said that maybe there won't be any numbers for at least 2, maybe 3 years until we can, get the numbers right, whatever that means. But that's not what I'm here to talk about. Did y'all see them farmers in Arkansas who are now begging Syphilitic Sid to help them? They are asking for a bailout. And I don't understand if they don't understand that a bailout is basically welfare for farmers. Now, mind you, I got no issues with farmers, right? Because without them, we wouldn't have, cabbages, broccoli, whatever, vegetables, right? Right, green beans, vegetables, tomatoes, whatever. But the fact that these people all voted overwhelmingly for Syphilitic Sid, now they're asking him to bail them out. And you know what he said? We're going to have to see how it goes. Because, there are more important issues. Like that $200 million ballroom. Mm-hmm. And that plane, apparently, that they still are trying to figure out what to do with that and how to renovate it, So, one man even said that his farm has been in his family for 3 generations. And he will not be able to leave his farm to his kids. Because if they don't get help, and soon, they're not going to have a farm. I want to feel bad. I promise you I do. And I do. But damn it, this is what you voted for. So I kind of got to be like, yay, for you. Maybe not for your kids who ain't going to inherit no farm. But there's plenty of kids ain't inheriting nothing. That was uncalled for. But you know what I'm saying. Okay, bye.
Let's talk about politics, because none of this is accidental. For years, the Republican Party branded itself as the party of the farmer. But in reality, they've been the party of agribusiness. Policies that favor massive corporations over family farms, tax breaks for mega producers, deregulation that makes small farms impossible to maintain, and those white farmers who voted red for decades? Many are realizing that the system they supported doesn't care about them anymore. Their subsidies are being cut, their land is being bought up by billion-dollar corporations, and their influence in Washington is fading. Meanwhile, the government's diversity initiatives, which were meant to correct decades of discrimination against black farmers, are being blocked or challenged in court by the same conservative politicians white farmers helped elect. It's poetic in a cruel way. The same system that protected them for generations is now watching them drown.
So this conversation is about black farmers, and something really interesting and fascinating is happening for those of you that have been on Nebraska Farmer Talk. Again, I'm in the Nebraska, Iowa, South Dakota area. My city's all 3. And we know that a lot of awful things are happening that we need to resist, particularly for any person of color, any marginalized community, whatever. So this is not a celebration, but a lesson, specifically for those that are saying fuck around and find out, right? Whenever I think about the fuck around and find out crowd, I think back to the Great Depression, and there were 2 groups that did really well economically. One of those was the poorest of the poor, because they were really just living kind of the same lifestyle. They learned how to be resourceful. The second was the wealthiest of the wealthy, because they had diverse enough portfolios and enough resources to get by. And when you think about the MAGA cult, that's kind of what it looks like, right? You have the least educated, the most disenfranchised, with the least resources, and then you have the wealthy at top, which tell them what to do. And as somebody that's been trying to write leftist strategy, right, and talk about what we can do to resist and how we can lift each other up, because we all rise or we don't rise at all. I hear people talk about the let them theory, right? Okay, go ahead and let them. And then I hear people talk about the, they're flooding the field. And these are all true, but you don't apply the same thing, shock doctrine or let them, whatever it may be, to each scenario.
But there are some scenarios where I'm saying, you know what? Let them. One of those is in rural agricultural communities, right? Because they hold most of the power and they've always wanted land to vote, right? And they have always heavily relied on government assistance. And I can't speak for the Black community. I hear about it, right? From my friends that go to Essence and read Essence and talk about like a generational wealth and all of these things. But there's something very unique about the Black community. In addition to knowing how to navigate systems of oppression, in addition to storytelling and building community, and that is that they do not expect the government to show up for them. They are used to having the government reject them at higher levels, which has always been the case with Black farmers. So when the rug is pulled on all of the white people, who I love to call welfare queens, I love to flip that Ronald Reagan phrase on them. So when all of these farmers are risking bankruptcy and losing everything, even if there are a handful of Black farmers, right, that were receiving government aid, they've got a backup plan. It is not integrated into their way of living so much that they cannot live without it. And the irony in that is so gorgeous to me. So as they close places like the Department of Education or maybe slash the post office, we know these rural red states that have always taken more federal funds than they've ever paid in, wherever it may be. It is going to mean that many farmers, ranchers, and even like kind of hobby homesteads, right? They will have to sell their land. They will have to move. And what I hope so deeply in my bones is that if it isn't Black farmers prevailing, it is Black farmers being able to buy up more of that land, right? Because they planned ahead. And if it isn't Black farmers, I hope it is Indigenous people that surround much of our agriculture, specifically where I'm at, right? Like Iowa, Nebraska, and South Dakota. And for these rural agriculture communities, back to the let them theory, I say let them. Let them ruin the school. Let them take the post office. Let these small towns dissolve. Let them move. Let other communities end up with more electoral votes to make things more equitable. The USDA lays people off, and as these white farmers that have always been able to avoid any type of regulation, and as recalls are going to become more rare, our food is going to become more dangerous, let Black farmers rise, because you know that they're not serving up dirty food. I hope that they all thrive. I hope that they expand. And I hope that this is true of every single industry that has been ignored by the public and by the government, where Black people are trying to make their way and are doing it without government resources. And I hope that it makes the racist white community that's always been so oppressive absolutely grovel when they begin to lose everything and see it picked up by people that they never thought should have it.
On TikTok, white farmers are crying out for help, literally. Videos of people begging the USDA, blaming inflation, and mourning lost land have gone viral. But the comment sections tell a story of their own. Black users responding not with sympathy, but with a kind of hard-earned understanding. This is what we've been through for decades. Now you know how it feels to be ignored. It's not cruelty, it's exhaustion. Because while many white farmers are realizing the government isn't their friend, Black farmers have always known that. And yet, they found a way to thrive anyway. From Georgia to North Carolina, to Texas and even Detroit, Black farmers are forming collectives that cut out middlemen and government aid. They're building something that looks more like a future, not just a business model. Something rooted in self-determination, cooperation, and community. That's the kind of strength you can't buy, legislate, or destroy.
I need your help to save my farm and many other farms. I wanted to give you guys an update on what we figured out with our contract through NRCS. So to give you some backstory, if you haven't watched the previous video, please go out, watch that previous video I've got on there. We are possibly going to lose our farm if NRCS doesn't hold up their contract with us on the EQIP program. So the reason that they're not able to hold up the contract is our EQIP program, which is cost sharing on fences, waters, a well, and some seedings, was funded by the Inflation Reduction Act. Because of the executive orders, there's a pause or a freeze on the funding through the Inflation Reduction Act, and they're not able to pay out on the stuff that we completed or anything going forward. But the issue I have is I've already done a bunch of the work, already paid for the material, already paid for the labor, so I'm out all that cost, and I use my farm operating expenses in order to do those projects, because per contract, I knew that I was going to get cost sharing refunds on the stuff once completed, but now that it's completed, they're saying that they're unable to provide the funds because of the freeze on the Inflation Reduction Act funds. So I reached out to a couple different senators and Congress people. So I reached out to Ann Wagner's office. I have not heard back from them. I reached out to Josh Hawley's office. I have heard back from him, not from him personally, but from his office. And they are looking into it because they said that this should not be happening. The intention was not to take away the funding from the farmers, but doing the Inflation Reduction Act, cutting those costs, then it's also taken away from the programs that those programs helped out. So it's in the works, but what I need from you guys is if you could please share this, tag your representatives, tag your senators. I need to get some ground on this because I'm not the only one this is affecting. So there are other farmers in the comments saying that they're in the same boat that I'm in because they signed these contracts, and the contracts, even like, so whenever I looked into the contract, I made sure that that funding was set aside. It wasn't funding that, oh, we hope it's there whenever it's done. I made sure that that funding was set aside so that way before I made these business decisions, I knew that funding was there per contract. So they're backing out on the contract because they don't have the funding. They can't release the funds. So please tag the representatives. Please tag the senators. I need to get some ground on this. We need to help me and other farmers out. We've got to get this funding paid out. I don't care if they don't do it in the future. The problem is there was contracts in place, multiple farms made business decisions, and multiple farms are going to sink if we don't get traction on this and get those funds unfrozen.
This isn't just about race. It's about the danger of dependency. When your survival depends on a system built to protect profits, not people, collapse is inevitable. And that's what white farmers are learning, painfully. But for black farmers, the lesson was learned a long time ago. When every door was slammed shut, they built their own. When banks refused to lend, they created co-ops. When the government looked away, they grew anyway. That's not just survival, that's liberation. The truth is, we're watching a historic reversal. The same people once excluded from America's agricultural promise are now redefining what success looks like. And the ones who had it all are learning what it means to start over.
Guess who just got the tea about what's going over on MAGA sides, specifically with the farmers in Arkansas? Child, them Trump tariffs is kicking their asses so bad that at the most recent NEA meeting, representative assembly that took place on Friday, the farmers in Arkansas all collectively broke down in prayer. They started calling on to God. They started calling on to God because they cannot trust that Donald Trump is actually going to keep his word. See, the big beautiful bill, which a lot of these Arkansas farmers voted for, and the Trump administration is currently renaming because it did not accurately describe what was in the bill, promised a lot of the people in the agriculture industry benefits that a lot of these businesses will not live to see as they all take effect in 2026, 2027. Late 2026 and early 2027 to be exact. But like I stated, a lot of those businesses will not be around long enough to see it come into fruition. Apparently around that time, a quarter of the farming industry in Arkansas will be out of business. And y'all already know that I always come with the evidence. I always have the clip. So stay tuned for the clip provided by ABC7.
The government steps in to save them. Farmers had no one to turn to but God. Farmers are lobbying. It's all they're closer to daily meetings on the server because we deal with your earth every day. You know, we're hurting anymore. We can't deal with what's happened to us.
Dear Lord, we are hurting here, Lord. We can't help what has happened to us. You actually could have helped it because you could have voted against it. Y'all could have voted for Kamala, but like you stated, she has a weird laugh. And here's a screenshot of the article. You can go and find it. Let's read along to the title. People have little sympathy for the Arkansas farmers who are asking Trump for emergency funding to save their farms. And because they can't trust on Trump to actually come through with these emergency funds, they started praying. I probably should have highlighted what I'm about to read, but it's in quotations at the top. It says, I have never been as worried as I am now about whether or not my kids and grandkids will be able to carry on. Welcome to the mentality of the average Black American here. Welcome to the mentality of the average Hispanic Latino person here. Welcome to the mentality of the average marginalized group member here in America. And to think that all of this could have been avoided, had you just listened to those same marginalized groups. If you would have just listened to the Black Americans here in this country, to the 92%, if you would have just listened. And now, ironically, the same tool that you used to oppress the marginalized groups in this country, the Black Americans in this country, the formerly enslaved people of America, religion, Christianity, prayer, is now the only tool that you can rely on, because you can't trust in your government to look out for you. You can't trust in your government to help you. How fucking ironic. And just a reminder, because I know y'all like to forget, right? Anytime, historically speaking, by the way, the Black Americans of this country stated that they needed help, they wanted to be treated fairly, they wanted equality, you told them to pray harder. You sent them to church. You told them to pray harder. That if it's really meant for them, all they had to do was pray harder and God was going to hear them. So that's my advice to you, you farmers in Arkansas. Pray harder, okay? Just keep praying. However, I do have a strong inkling that we are not praying to the same gods. I know the God that I pray to. There's only one. I don't know what you're praying to, but pray harder, okay? God bless America.
Maybe this moment, this collapse, is a chance for honesty. For white farmers, it's time to understand that survival isn't about subsidies or politics. It's about humility. It's about learning from the people who were never supposed to survive but did anyway. And for everyone watching, Black, white, or otherwise, it's a reminder: resilience always wins. Maybe the real American farmer story was never about who got the most acres. Maybe it's about who learned to grow something that lasts, even when everything else burned to the ground.